swear. Okay. Hi, my name's Abby.
My name is Noah.
My name's Natalie.
My name is Karen.
And for our podcast today, we're going to be talking about culture and mental health and how the two are connected. Even though everyone experiences stress and mental health challenges, culture can shape how people view those struggles, cope with them, and ask for help. So, we're just going to go over a few questions regarding those topics. For our first question, it's going to be mental health exists everywhere, but different cultures often view it very differently. And we're just going to talk about why we think that is.
Well, I think that it is viewed differently because some cultures are more individualistic while some are collectivist. And the cultures that are more individual, they're kind of like encouraged to be independent and take care of themselves. And the collectivists are more like family and community, so they rely more on each other and to support each other and make decisions that are often best for like the group itself.
I feel like a lot of cultures encourage people to talk openly about their feelings and like be honest about those types of things, and others don't. And I feel like that also changes like family to family. Like my family, like I always feel like I never talk about like feelings, like what's going on, whereas like other people are so open with their parents and like their siblings and stuff like that, and like they're very comfortable being like open and honest with people. So I feel like it changes like culture to culture and just like family style to family style.
Yes, I also think the same thing just because like some families' gender roles are much more strict than others, as far as like being a father of a household or a brother or, even a sister or a mom, like all those things play important roles as far as culture goes and as far as handling mental health inside of a household and from person to person.
Yeah, I think you guys are like all right in different ways. And like also like did you guys know in some cultures they see like mental health as like actually like a medical thing versus just like emotional like regulation and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Next, let's see. Question two is if two people were struggling with the same mental health issue but grew up in different cultures, how do you think their experiences and support systems might differ?
I guess it kind of just like follows up the same question, but you kind of have it person to person, it's obviously differs very much in the way that like some families might be okay with talking about it with one another or have even having like solving problems together as a group, or some people can even like bring up emotional with or sorry, not withdrawals, but emotional stutters in their own life in any sort of circumstance just because like some families see it as weak and or like just not relevant to the family's structure of life.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is also stigmas around mental health. Like you mentioned, like for some cultures, like that's seen as like an illness and not like something that you can be open about. So for mental health, like some people aren't comfortable going and asking for help and like getting what they need because it's just that's there's like a big stigma around it and they don't feel comfortable or like it'd be accepted in their culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh,
for Hispanics at least, sorry.
you're good.
Um, for males, there's a whole thing about being macho and like men are taught not to like cry and like just get over their emotions and often like it's not really talked about. It's more seen like you said as an illness and that can definitely like differ different cultures and especially like the way that they grew up and the way that they become as adults and it can eventually impact I guess like their adult relationships.
Yeah, also I feel like depending on the culture, like religious beliefs also play a big part in that because like you said like for in the like Latino culture it's like men are seen as one way, but like religiously also people like will constantly say like instead of talking about it, they kind of just tell people like, "Oh, why don't you just pray about it?" Even though there's like some communities where it's okay, like people talk about things, but I think it just depends on like culture to culture and what religions people follow too.
Anything else? Um, The next is going to be social media constantly exposes us to beauty standards and lifestyle expectations. Do you think social media has done more harm or good for people's mental health?
I feel like nowadays people are like so it's like everybody's quick to like compare themselves to people that you see on the internet, especially like girls and guys, but more so girls, like, because everyone's getting like lip filler and like doing like all these things to their face and their body. And like I feel like nowadays like the stereotype is like the beauty standard is like people who basically have their whole face done, and now people who are natural like kind of don't see their own like uniqueness. So I feel like nowadays like since everything's all over the place, you can find anyone's social media, you can find anything. It's kind of hard to like, be like okay with your own individual like flaws and whatnot. And I feel like in the past, because there wasn't social media, people couldn't compare themselves as much. So I think that's deteriorating people's mental health now since they're constantly like pitting each other against each other.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely depends on like who you follow on social media and the types of posts that you see. Because like there are a lot of like comparing yourself to other people and it like really deteriorates your mental health, or like seeing someone else and they're like at this stage in life and like they have all these things and you feel like you should be at like the same point. And then there's the other side where it's like they do bring awareness to like, imperfections and being natural, or like mental health awareness. Like there are a lot of people, and I feel like you see that more now. Like people are kind of opening up more now about like actual struggles they go through so that they are more relatable. And like that side can absolutely help people and like make them feel like more understood and like seen. But then there's like the other side. So I feel like it can go either way.
Yeah.
I think I agree with what both of you guys are saying. I was kind of gonna say the same thing, but then I was thinking about it like it also, when I think about it culturally speaking, like some families are far more, I think, socially in touch than others, like either, I mean, I'm gonna say with Latino or like brown or Filipino or whatever, just because those are my experiences. But like I've seen families that are like at least the parents and or the grandparents are completely out of touch with social media. But like also I've also seen families where like that they're all on Facebook or they're all on TikTok or whatever. And I think it kind of just depends. I think like you said that there's positives and negatives to pull from like both of it, but I think it's hard sometimes for when it comes to mental health when there's families that already struggle with like I don't want to say insecurities, but I'm going to use insecurities just because like it's just the word that I come up with, and like families that struggle with I guess emotional competence and all that stuff. It's like when you throw social media in the mix, it can make it a lot worse than it seem or than it actually is.
Yeah, I also agree with what you guys are saying. I think it could definitely bring harm and good. I think like for good, like it could advocate for mental health, and then I feel like that can influence people or like schools, like community groups to maybe like include some of the mental practices that they're like posting about, like I don't know, breathing, meditation, all of that. But for harm, also like if you see like posts that are like perfect to you, you might feel like your self-esteem goes down, especially for teenagers since they're going through that stage of development. They might feel like they're not good enough or like they need to like fit in. It could make them do like it can make them do bad decisions sometimes just to like try and fit in.
Yeah. Okay. Question 4 is, have you ever seen someone be misunderstood because of cultural differences? How do you think misunderstandings like that could affect someone who is already struggling with their mental health?
Mm,
I think so. Let's see. My uncle is a refugee from the Vietnam War. So my cousins are all Vietnamese and Filipino, and we grew up very close, but it's like we all look so different. Like you would never know that like someone as white as me is like blood related. And so I feel like just growing up, like people treated us differently and like expected different things from us. Like it was just that standard of like you're Asian, so you're smart. Like people always expected that of my cousins. And like for me, they're just like, oh well, like you gotta see, like it's fine. Like I feel like it just like it differs so much from person to person. Like I can't say that like I don't think I've ever really been treated differently, at least like not to an extent that like I've noticed or picked up on it. But like I can say like I've seen it happen to like my close family, and it's just crazy seeing that like even though we're fully related and like same genetics, like somebody's just treated so differently based off of their like culture and like their upbringing.
I think for me, what I understood from the question was like sometimes like in different cultures, being like quiet and like keeping to yourself might be seen as like a form of respect, especially when you're like in a group setting. But for like some other cultures, it could be like, oh, they don't care, they're like being disrespectful, or like food related. Like for Hispanic, if you're eating and then they're like, "Oh, do you want some more?" If you like reject it, it might be seen like a form of disrespect. But in other cultures, like that might not be the case. Um, so yeah, that's what I took from that question.
Yeah, I feel like it's also like, for example, like people know people are American when you've traveled to other countries because in America we do small talk a lot. And I feel like, in other places people think it's like weird. So I kind of like what you were saying, like it just depends from culture to culture. But like I've seen it happen before, like when I traveled to like Mexico and even I work in hospitality, so I see it all the time because we get people from different places. So like some people, like my coworkers, would be like, "Oh, that person's rude," and I'm like, "No, they're like from like Eastern Europe and they're kind of like more blunt, so like it makes sense. Just depends on like, their upbringing and whatnot."
Yeah, I think, like you said, like has their upbringing and culture has everything to do with who they are, like as a person entirely. Like their in-person experiences, and this can go as early as like middle school, like being in school and growing up completely different than the person next to you and having to share social interactions can change you entirely. So I've seen plenty or my fair share of people being treated differently and handling situations differently just because of how they were raised or the situations they're in as far as their inner household goes and the things they were taught to do when they grew up.
Yeah.
All right. Question 5 is many people turn to friends, family, religious leaders, or online communities instead of therapists when they're having a hard time. Why do you think some people feel more comfortable seeking support in those ways?
I feel like sometimes like it's kind of hard to like go to like a therapist, and like it also might be like related to something we talked about earlier, like social stigmas. Because a lot of people feel like, like venting to your friend is like, therapy when like realistically like it is a form of like, venting and like helping yourself. And it's a good thing to have like that kind of support. But I think it's mostly just like that social stigma because it's like even though people are like becoming more mentally like aware and like it's okay to like seek help, but I think it's just like the fact that you're like going to like someone who's actually licensed and is gonna hear you out. And I feel like sometimes people are also uncomfortable at the fact that like they're not gonna get the response that they want to hear. And depending on like who you go to, whether it's your friend, like who's gonna tell you you're right and who's gonna tell you you're wrong. So like maybe going to like an actual therapist or like psychologist, like you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I feel like also going to an actual like mental health professional makes it more real. Whereas like if I'm just going to like a family member or like a friend and just being like, this is what I'm struggling with, that's like more like just I'm talking to somebody and like I'm telling someone how I'm feeling. Whereas like there is that stigma, like if I go to an actual psychologist or whatever I need, like then it is a real like mental health issue. And I feel like a lot of people just they don't want to be seen as somebody that has a mental health issue, so it's easier to just ignore it and act like it's easier to just chat about it with your friends or family instead of like actually getting the help you need.
Yeah, I think many of us are more comfortable talking to like close people, like family members, close friends, or even like religious people, like leaders. just because like that's how they grew up. They didn't really grow up with those resources, or like their socioeconomic status didn't allow them to like seek that professional help. So maybe that wasn't something that they were like aware of growing up, and now as they're like older, they don't feel comfortable speaking to like a stranger because they rather like rely on their family, which is what they've been doing for so long. And yeah, sometimes people may just rely on like religious guidance because they grew up like religious, going to church, and like Natalie mentioned earlier, it's that's what they are kind of like used to. And but when people say just pray on it, like that's definitely something that's like true. They encourage that a lot instead of like going to a professional.
Yeah, and for I mean, you guys all made this point, but like essentially like for some cultures, like family is all people know, and all people can experience really. And some people don't even have the access to get therapy, and so it's not even an option. But yeah, I think like you guys said, a lot of it just comes from like you just believe in your family, like your family's everything, especially in certain cultures. So it makes sense that to not have to deal with a professional, when they don't even when from that perspective they might not even know you, or know exactly what it is that you feel, or at least that's like the personal perception.
All right, question 6 is imagine moving to a completely different country where the values, language, and social norms are unfamiliar. What challenges do you think? Wait, I'm sorry. Oh, what challenges do you think that could create someone's mental well-being?
I think moving to a different country can be it could either go like good or bad. If it's like planned, like it's been long planned, then I think it could be like better because you built like that structure of you going, and maybe you like have already found like social circles in that area that know that you're moving there. But if you're like not really aware that you're moving, that can cause like a psychological distress because everything is new and unfamiliar, like the culture, language, etc. And I think for this, I just want to highlight like refugees, like people that don't know that they're like moving, so they don't have like time to say goodbye to the relatives or gather any other things. So I think for them, it would be like a harder, like it would hit them harder just because they didn't even get to say goodbye, and this can affect their mental health and even bring like, I don't know, like depression, anxiety.
Yeah, I had foreign exchange students like back during COVID. They like were going to a college down the street from us, and my sister played tennis with them, and when COVID happened, they couldn't go home to their families like even when school was over. Like the whole reason that they came to the States was for like their sport and for school, and that got shut down. And they were all just stuck with like random people housing them, and like we just watched like their mental health deteriorate so much because they didn't have like a social circle, they didn't have anybody. So we housed I think in total like 3 or 4 foreign exchange students, and like we lived with them for a few months. And I feel like also just seeing like their culture come out was like so different from ours. Like theirs was a state of mind where it was like they were like you eat every single bite of your food, you don't waste anything. They were like you get fully dressed and ready every time like you're going to get gas, like you need a real outfit on, you need everything done. And so it was just like living with them, I was like I felt like I had to do the same stuff. And like those are simple things, but I feel like for them like it just made them feel even more like separate from like their own culture, and like they just didn't know anybody. And like it definitely like affected their mental health, like being here and away from like their own life. Now obviously like they weren't planning on getting stuck here, but I feel like it is like a similar situation to like being moved without preparation. Like you go through the same thing, and like being stuck somewhere you don't want to be without preparation, like you go through like such a culture shock, and like and it is a lot on like your mental health.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going off what like Karen was saying, like the refugees. I was gonna say like, we know that like a lot of people have been immigrating here. And like I feel like a lot of them have been like displaced from their own homes, whether it's like Latin America or like the Middle East because of all these like ongoing conflicts. So I feel like you said, Abby, like the culture shock when they get here and like it's very different because like for example in like Latin America people are very friendly to each other. As we're here, like it just depends like where you are really. Because some people are like super chatty and then some people are not. So I feel like that also like creates like a lack of like belonging. I forgot the like word I was gonna say, but like, you just feel like you don't fit in, like so it just makes you feel like you're sticking out like a sore thumb, right? So I feel like that like all of these things like lead up to like, potential like depression or just like feeling extra lonely. But there's like so many factors that go into it. So like it's just like a bunch of emotional distress all in one.
Like I could only imagine having to like switch to a new school when I was 10 or something, or having to completely change my entire life just because of of a location issue. So I could only imagine, like you guys said, just culture shock, all the above of just having to be in an entirely new place, especially like not even to speak a language, you know? So yeah, that's kind of it.
Okay, question 7 is, do you think therapists should adjust their approach based on a person's cultural background, or should treatment be the same for everyone, and why?
I think obviously treatment should very much completely differently to each person just because what everybody's different and why would one set of rules and or like follow-ups have anything to, you know, do with us being the same? Or I guess that doesn't really make sense, but I just think it's completely unnecessary to have a professional be only good at one thing, you know? Like why would that even matter?
Yeah, I think definitely each person needs different help depending on like their upbringing, their culture, everything kind of plays into that. But I also think that therapists should offer the same to everyone in a sense, like give everybody the same amount of like attention and like not treatment, but like the same opportunities to every patient. Like give them that option, and then depending on like what their like background looks like and what their needs are specifically, like tailor it to that, but like just starting open and like even for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like therapy isn't a one size fits all situation, and I feel like I don't know if you guys are all psych majors or not, but like, we consistently learn about like different approaches and like behavioral therapy and how like, like everyone's behavior is different, so like therapists or psychologists have to like evaluate the person and like look at their behavior to understand like the root of the behavior and then be able to help them based off like their behavior, because not everyone is the same. Like, what might be okay for for you to say in front of me might not be okay for the next person. So it just really like, just depends on the person realistically.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I have a good example. Like a couple of years ago, I had a friend that came from a very conservative like culture, conservative family, and they were part of the LGBTQ, and they tried to seek therapy just because like their family was very like against it, and from what they told me, like the experience was bad just because like the therapist didn't really understand like why like they didn't kick them out, but they were like not making any like food for them, not doing like anything that a parent should do. And I guess the therapist just wasn't very like understanding of the situation, and the only thing that they would offer would be like coping mechanisms, but not really like talk about the situation itself or address anything. So I think it could sometimes complicate a person's mental health if they're not with the right therapist. So I think the therapist should definitely like adapt to different communication styles and treatment methods to be respectful and be understanding of the person's experience.
Yeah. All right. Question 8 is, some cultures place a strong emphasis on independence while others focus more on family and community. How do you think those differences affect the way people deal with stress and personal struggles?
I think it's exactly like we were saying earlier. It kind of just it changes in, like your entire outreach and their next following steps following up the trauma or whatever problems you're experiencing, like it's like, all right, what do you do next and or who are you going to talk to next or how do you feel about talking to somebody else or if like just the following steps, all of the above, and each one has different outcomes as well. So that's yeah.
I feel like it can also like
It's okay, go.
I feel like also like it's not just culture to culture that it's different, but also family type. Like I was raised very independent to like do everything for myself, like never ask for help and like stuff like that. Whereas like some of my friends, like their moms and their dads want to do absolutely everything for them and like hold their hand and while they do everything, which is totally fine, but it's just like I feel like even just household to household. And I feel like when that like connects to like again like personal struggles and mental health, like feeling like you shouldn't get help and like you shouldn't tell people what you're going through can be linked to like being independent and being raised to like deal with stuff on your own. Whereas like when you have that like nurturing household who like wants to be there for you for every little thing, like you're more likely to just ask for the help you need and like go to them.
Yeah, I think that also like shapes like the way that you like are actually like out in the real world. So like for example, like when you get a job, if you were raised to be super independent, then you don't really ask for help. You're not really good at working in like groups. But like people who, as you said, get their hand held and like their parents like want to walk them through everything, they kind of like depend on others to get things done. As where like other people are like, it's a little frustrating. Like I was also raised independent, so like I'll explain things to people, but like it gets frustrating like after a few times 'cause I'm like, how do you like not get it? So like I get like, the question like I can really relate to that because it does cause issues. Like you have to obviously like everyone has to like adapt in their own ways, but not everybody can.
Yeah, like shifting a little from the question, I also think of like child order. I don't know if it's like the same for like every culture, but at least for Hispanics, they're kind of like raised as a second parent, and they're definitely like made to be more individual, especially if they have like younger siblings. If like both parents are at work, then the oldest should be like responsible for the others, and then like once like the parents get a little bit older and like as the kids like progress in age, sometimes they're a little more like lenient on the younger ones and they're more like connected to them and like, oh, let me do this for you. And then like the oldest is like, oh, but why didn't you do that for me? So then the oldest grows up to be like independent, like you guys said, like they have a difficult time asking for help and like moving along with life, while the younger ones might have like had everything handed to them. So they turn out a little bit more different and maybe they might expect everything to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think there's only like 2 minutes left of our Zoom time. Okay, 1 minute now. Do we want to like speed round one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Question 9 is more celebrities and athletes are opening up about their mental health. Do you think these conversations are helping reduce stigma or do people still face a lot of judgment?
I think it's still hard in the way that if you're talking about like professional athletes and stuff like that, like these are some of the I guess I'm just gonna say elites of the world. So it's like hard to be like, oh, like these people have the most money in the world. So it's like I think it's hard to follow up, but I mean I think it is does do positive for all of society.
Yeah, I think it can go both ways. Same with social media. Like, yeah, it opens up that door to like talk about it and bring awareness, but like it can also make it more difficult because it's like obviously like we're not all millionaires, so it's just different person to person. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for celebrities, like for normal people, we're like, okay, like if they're complaining about something that like we deal with on a daily basis in our regular lives, it's almost like out of touch and we kind of still don't see them as like humans because they're in a different like they're just like out of touch is what we would think. So I feel like it just depends who we're looking at. Either it's gonna get worse and we're gonna judge them more, or we're really gonna be able to relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It could go both ways, and sometimes like celebrities might just like try and speak about mental health, but not really mean it. Maybe just for like monetization purposes. So it might not feel like real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was it. Our time's up. Um, yeah, thanks.
Thank you
That's
guys.
fun. Okay. Is it just gonna shut off on its own or
I
like
I
think
think it
so.
does shut off once you hit 30 minutes and like you don't have that like subscription or like an account or something. We all just get kicked out.
okay.
Do we?
I think you might end up getting the link, Abby.
Oh, okay. Wait, it's still recording.
I don't think you'll care.